going? This is Rory from ratemyfuneral.com. That was Rate, by the way. How's things? What have you been up to? Anything good? Cool. This one is not a big tutorial like normal. This is like a little thing. I called it 10 Great Hits for Cinema 4D Beginners. So it's all the little kind of little tips that I've come across since I've been doing this, and I thought I would just put it together in one little thing, one little video, because that's quite handy. I'm just going to cover a bunch of things that I think are really useful. If there's anything else that you think is really handy to know, stick it in the comments, and you know, we create a database, you know, and perhaps if I get another 10 submitted, I'll make another video featuring those 10. So yeah, let's begin somewhere at the beginning. Camera controls I'm going to start with, because this is something that's sometimes a little overlooked. So a little quick bit about cameras. Basically, you just create a cube here. Now you have the camera controls up here. So here you have the move tool, you have the zoom in and out, and then you have the rotate. So that's quite easy. You can also do these from shortcut keys. So you can use the 1 key to hold down the 1 key and click and drag, and you can move the camera around. Hold down the 2 key and click and drag, and you'll zoom in and out. Now you'll zoom in and out to wherever you click, so that's quite handy from time to time. And number 3 is rotate. So you hold down that and rotate. Now all of these ones up here and the keys, if you do the left mouse button, sorry, the right mouse button, will actually alter what it does. So if you hold 1 and press the left, you get another type of zoom, which I think might be actually focal length, or no, it's just physically moving the camera backwards and forwards, I believe. Number 2, that I think is focal length. Yeah, that is, you can tell that. So if I, yeah, holding the right mouse button and moving away, so I'm changing the focal length of the camera. And number 3 actually tilts it, so you can get that cool arty kind of look if you were doing a car or something. So yeah, so that's the basic controls. It's also worth noting there is a difference. There are two camera types in cinema. So this is the viewport camera, so we don't have any camera selected in here, and this is just the camera used for editing. If you add a camera to the scene with this button here, if we just zoom out a bit, you can see that's that camera there. Now we're not currently in that camera view because this button here is not highlighted. If we click it, we're now in this view. So with that being the case, we can move this camera over here, come out of it, and you can see that's now moved, but my viewport camera is still the same. We move that one, and there you can see it's moved. Now a really handy hint here, there's a couple of ways of doing this. One, there's a tag, which I've got to try and remember which is now. It is the camera comes into look at camera motion versus protection. So if you put this tag on there, you've locked the camera, so you can't move it. So if you wanted that camera to stay where it is, you can now move this one around fine, but you can't accidentally move this camera, because this is the biggest cause for headache. If you accidentally move your camera and you didn't want to, so you can either use that one and it just disables it, so you can't move it around. If you still want to be able to move it around but just don't want to lose that original position, I'll just remove that tag. The best way to do it is just simply put a keyframe on that camera. So hold with the camera highlighted, hit the little keyframe button down here, and then now if I move this camera like this and then just hit play, it now puts it back. So that's a great little tip. So that's camera controls. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is a really simple one, control drag. Check out how simple this is. I want to make a copy of this cube. I hold down the control key and I drag it. There you go, made a copy of it. So I now have 2 cubes. If I want to make a copy of both of these, highlight them both, hold control, drag, and now I have 4 cubes. And so on and so forth. So it's just a really handy little shortcut tip. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is the Alt key. Now this is really useful and it kind of seems a little complicated, or it might not, I don't know, but it's very difficult to explain. But basically, if we have an object and we want to add another object to be a parent for that object, for example, a hyperNURBS, we want to put that cube into that hyperNURBS to make it rounded. So we do that. There we go. That was easy. However, you can just save a step just by, with the cube highlighted, hold down the Alt key when you select hyperNURBS, and it puts it inside for you. This is just really handy, just for saving time and that sort of thing. Another quite common use for this is for something like the bend tool. Now, just really quickly, I'm not going to go too much into how the bend tool works, but let me just make a shape here, give it a bunch of segments. Oh, quick sub hit, display lines, and there we go. We can now see what that has in the way of lines. Right, so if I now put the bend tool into this scene, I make the bend tool a child of the cube, and I can do a strength bend like that. There we go. Find a good angle to actually demonstrate this properly. There we go, that'll do. 90 degrees. Okay, so we're now using the bend tool to bend this cube like that. Okay, straightforward enough. However, sometimes it's not always as straightforward. So let's just get rid of that. So let's say your cube is not directly in the center of the scene and it's over here. You add that bend tool, it's now in the middle, so you need to get that in over there. There are a couple of ways of doing that. One is you can manually try and find where it is, use the top and the bottom views, and you know, and try and line it up and get it right and all of that. But obviously that's quite slow, so you don't really want to be doing all of that. The other way is you can put the bend inside the cube, and using the position controls down here, this is PSR down here, position, size and rotation, you can just zero all of those out, hit enter, and it'll be in the center. Again, that's alright, but it's a bit slow. So the really easy way to do this is use the Alt key. With the cube selected, hold Alt on the bend. It now makes the cube a child of the bend. Now that's obviously the wrong way around, so just quickly swap them around. There you have it. That's now in the middle of the, like so, and you can go ahead and do whatever it is you want to do with that. So that is the Alt key. Okay, so the next one, you kind of saw me do it. What we're going to do here, it was centering an object to another object. So a great example of this is if we've got, say, a tube, and we'll just make this tube face that way, and we place this over here. Now what we want is a cylinder in the middle of that tube. So we create our cylinder and put it onto the same axis. Now again, one way of doing it would be to use the top and bottom views and try and find the right place and move it around like that. Another way is to use the PSR. So you basically put that cylinder as a child of the tube, and then down here, position, size, rotation, just center out the position all to 0, and it uses the positioning data of the tube, so it's now in the center of the tube. So we know that's dead center. So obviously that's really handy. Now just to make that a little bit quicker, there is a button, but by default it's not displayed. So you can add it to the main of your what do you call this, workplace or layout. So let's see, what we do is we right click up here, we do customize palettes, and just type in here PSR, and you can see one there, reset PSR. So we just drag that and place it onto there. That's now part of our layout. So if I just move this cylinder out of the way like so, that's now over there. If we want to get that to there, we put it as a child of the tube and just click the PSR button, and that does all that for you. So it just makes it a little bit easier. It's also, you can now save this layout. You can do save as startup layout like that, and that PSR button will always be there on your startup. So that's a really handy one. Okay, next, most commonly used shortcut keys for me anyway. Obviously there's a shortcut key, there's a million shortcut keys in this, but these are kind of the ones that I tend to use most often. So I'm just going to create a couple of objects. Let's create something like let's create let's create a cube, that'll do. And I'm just going to do display shading lines so we can see our lines, and put a few segments into the cube, and I'm going to press C on the cube to make it editable. So it's no longer parametric, it's now editable. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is the spacebar. Basically the spacebar juggles you between your last selected tool and the selector arrow, live selection arrow. So perhaps, you know, you were in, for example, you're in create polygon, press space, it'll go back to that, press space again, create polygon. So it's really handy just to get back to the arrow if you just need to now move something. Next one is the extrude. Just going to select polygon mode here, going to grab a polygon and I'm going to press D, and that gives me the extrude tool, so I can now do this. We just grab another one and pull that in maybe, and grab those three there and do that. We can change the maximum angle there so it comes out as a whole cube, and that's bizarre, isn't it? So D is extrude. K is the knife tool. So let's say we want to add some more lines to this. We want to go to either point or line mode really for the knife tool. So I'm going to go point mode. And now I have the knife tool. I can click and drag and I've cut a line basically. So K gives you the knife. Quick handy hint with the knife tool is loop. So you can create a line, but obviously that's not particularly straight because I had to do it by eye. So if you do a loop, you can now go around and cut nice neat lines and stuff. So that's the knife tool, K. E gives you the move tool. So again, if I go out of points mode and into model mode, press E, I'm now in the move tool, so I can move things around space, and I'm back in the live selection tool. There's a shortcut menu by pressing U, and you can actually see there's a nice list. I'm pointing to it for some reason because I can't move down with the cursor while it's up. There's a nice list, so you can sort of grab things like this. You can see in there. So the occasional one that I tend to use from this list is UL. If I just go to polygon mode again and go UL, that gives me the loop selection, so I can grab maybe all of those, press D, and I can now extrude those. There's another menu as well, the M menu, so you press M and you get another menu there. So there are a few things there that are quite useful, like bridge, create polygon hole, close polygon, that sort of thing. So if we do M B for bridge, while we're in line mode, we can maybe grab that line there, pull that across to there, and there we go, we've now bridged that polygon. So all very, very useful shortcut keys. Okay, multiple object attributes. That's what I'm calling this anyway. Basically, if you've got a bunch of cubes, I'm just going to create some cubes. Oh, incidentally, in the last one I forgot the T key is scale, which is really, really handy. Just to grab that in, I forgot to add that in the last one. Right, so I'm going to create a few cubes and I'm going to move them across on the Z-axis. Now, every now and then you'll have a bunch of different things that you want to move. But you want to move them a set amount from their current position. Now obviously you can select each one and do that all manually, but if you've got a lot of objects, that'll take you a long time. And if you highlight them all and we have a look down here in the coordinates, you end up with this here where it says multiple, and if we change this, it will put them all together there. So now all of them are sitting in on that same amount. Now if we want them to say all move, for example 30 centimeters on this Z-axis, we can actually select them all, you get the multiple there, and in there just type in X plus 30, and what that's doing is that's just saying basically add 30 to each of the cube Z positions, and there you go, and that moves them. The same thing works for rotation, so let's say they're all rotated a bit, so that one was 90, that one's 70, 186, and this one 306. Now again, we want these to rotate 127 degrees from their current position. If we select them all, they'll be multiples, so that now puts them all, if you notice, they're all sitting at 26 degrees, so we don't want that. So again, same thing, x plus 127, and they've now all moved 127 degrees from where they were. So this is really useful. You can use times, plus or minus, or even divide. It does the maths for you, so really handy. Right, the connect object for splines. This is something that is just so useful, it's ridiculous. Let's say, like, so you want to create a square tube. So basically a cube with a hole in the middle. When I first started out, the easiest way I found to do this was to make a cube, make a copy of it, just shrink the copy inside of the cube slightly and make it longer, add that into a ball and put the other cube in there as well, and there you go, you've now made this. But because it's a ball, it runs a bit slower and it's kind of difficult to keep on top of, and you don't have the same fillet techniques. So really what you want to do is use a spline to do this. So a nice easy way to do this is to select a rectangle spline. I'm just going to put this onto the XZ axis so it's working upwards. We're then going to create a duplicate of that spline, and we will make it, say, 350, so it's inside. Now if you want to extrude that, you can extrude one or the other easily. So extrude, so you can see there, we just change that. We don't want it to do that axis, we want it to do that. So obviously that creates that cube, or if we put the other one on, that creates that cube. If you just put both of them in, it will just only ever do the first thing it comes to. You can place items in a null to allow them to both be used. So if we put those into a null and place that in there, you can see it just doesn't do anything. So it just doesn't work like that. So what you need is for this rectangle to be one item. So if we go to this icon here and do connect, we then make both these rectangles a child of that connect. Now that is classed as one object. So we put the connect in there and we have our cylinder, which we can now also really easily adjust. We can adjust the sizes, we can add rounding to it, we can add rounding to the outside and bring that in like this. And obviously with the extrude knobs you can go to caps, fillet cap, add a few steps to that, maybe reduce the radius a little bit, click the constrain button, and now we have like quite a nice looking rounded shape there, which is all completely parametric, so we can edit it and change it at any time. So really handy, that one. Okay, move the axis for a parametric shape. Now this is a pain. I've had this a few times. Let's say you've got a parametric shape. So we've added this cube. It's still parametric, so we can still change it. We can still change its options really easily. Brilliant. Now it's, for example, a door. I want to animate opening that door. Now if I press the rotation key, you see it pivots from the center, and that's because that's where the axis is. The axis is in the center of the door. So there's actually a key over here called enable axis modification, and what will happen is you can now click that and move the axis in the object. Now because it's parametric, it doesn't allow you to do it. If I just show you, if I press C, make it editable, it's no longer parametric, so we don't have the options to change it. But because we've got this axis mode selected, we can actually move that axis around. So we can put it to there, turn that off again, go back to rotate, and now we can open it and close it like a door. But the problem is, like I say, this is no longer parametric, so we can't add the nice fillet edges, we can't modify it in quite the same way. So I'll just undo and go back. Now, if you want to move this axis whilst it's a parametric object, the simple thing is you have to place it into a null. So you can do this in two ways. You can go to null in there, hold Alt, and that'll place it into the null. Or the shortcut key, which I use all the time, Alt and G. Actually, that should have been in the shortcut keys section, because I use that all the time. So that creates a null. Now obviously it's best to rename that, because you may not know what it is, but you can actually move that axis for that null over to the side. If you click on the cube itself, that's still the same, but now we've got the door axis, we've moved that over, press R for rotate, and there you go. R for rotate, that's another one that should have been in there. Christ, you don't find a lot of these till you actually sit and using it, I have to admit. So anyway, so we've created that. So that's how you do that. That's something that I've come across a few times when I was creating things that had rotating parts and stuff, and I wanted to keep the items parametric, but yeah, so best way to do that. Okay, so something I get asked quite often is how you make sort of rounded edges out of sharp edges. So this is something that's I don't know. It's a bit strange in cinema, because obviously you can sit and model it all yourself, but sometimes you literally just want a nice edge put on. So if you saw my video recently where I model a ring, there was an example on this. So I'm just going to go to display lines, and for this object I'm just going to put on some height segments. There we go. Now, because this object is parametric, I can't edit it in polygon mode, so I can't do anything like that, so we have to make the object editable. Now that the object's editable, we can no longer add fillets to it, so we can't round these edges here, but we can select this. So we'll use the shortcut that we used earlier, UL, to give us a loop selection, and we'll grab that middle one, and then we'll use the shortcut D, which is the extrude, and we'll pull that out like that. So now we have this shape here. Now I want to make that rounded, so what we're going to use is the hyperNURBS object. So hold Alt, select hyperNURBS, and that puts that in. Now you see how that's rounded that extrude that we did, and basically because what that's doing is for a right angle it creates a curve. Now the way this works this out is I think it's 45 degree curve basically. So every sharp angle, it's that angle is curved. So depending on where your cut is, it affects how this is going to work. So the easiest way is for me to show you. It's really difficult to explain. So I'll turn on my hyperNURBS again. I'm going to select the tube. I'm going to select point mode, and we can kind of see what's happening here a little bit now. If I select the knife with K and set that to loop, now if we put a cut just here, that actually adjusts how much of a curve that is, and depending on how close you get sort of depends on how sharp that crease is, you see. So again, we can put another one, say here. See, now we've got quite a sharp curve going on compared to this side. So we can bring those into line and click on there, and like so. So therefore we've now got a nice line. So that's the hyperNURBS. Now obviously there's loads to hyperNURBS, but this is just a quick thing. It's just to get you started, have a play with it, and sort of find out what you can do with it. But it's worth mentioning. Basically you can see also the hyperNURBS subdivides all the polygons. So if I switch the hyperNURBS off, you can see this is how many polygons it has without the hyperNURBS. With the hyperNURBS on, it's got all of these. You can put these up so you have even more. So basically you've got two boxes here, the editor, which is how many you're seeing in the editor. So you want this quite low, otherwise it's going to really slow down your machine for navigating around. But the editor one, sorry, the rendering one, that's how many it will do when it actually renders. So it does two, it subdivides every polygon twice at the moment when we just press Ctrl and R and look at that, and when we're just looking at this one. However, if we do a preview to the picture viewer, that has now subdivided everything by 3. And it's very difficult to tell in that case because there's already a lot of geometry there. But Maybe if you're really, really, really close up, then you will see a sort of a bit of a difference with the lines, kind of thing. So yeah, so that's a really, really basic intro to the HyperNURBS. Have a play with it and see how you get on. Okay, so finally, I'm going to do a little bit on the dynamics thing, because that's the most fun part about cinema, is playing with the dynamics, and it's where I spent so many hours when I first got into it. A couple of really, really important points. So firstly, what I'm going to do is just create a studio. So I'm just going to use Infidio for this. Infidio Pro is my Infinity Studio. So what this does is, if you just press render, you will now see that it's just a sort of seamless background. If we put a cube in there, it's basically already set up, all the lighting set up, everything set up for me. I haven't got to do anything. I can even just add a simulation tag to my cube, and even the floor is already configured and it's already working. So that's great. Now, what I'm going to just cover quickly here is if you have multiple objects, dynamic objects, they tend to intersect and you get some sort of strange anomalies. So there's a couple of ways to deal with these. So I'll just quickly set something up using the cube. I'm just going to shrink that right down, and I'm going to place the cube into a cloner. Remember, hold Alt and it automatically puts it in for you. I'm going to change the cloner to a grid array, and I'm going to up the numbers so we have a load of cubes like that. So 10, 10, 10, something like that. And let's just spread these out a little so that we get some action when these drop. Okay, and just raise them above the floor. The last thing I'm going to do is change the shape from automatic to moving mesh. Alright, I'm also just going to make a few changes on the studio because it's a little bit difficult to see with this color. So in the studio controls, I'm just going to change it to white, like so. There we go. And I'm just going to hit play, and you get bang. Now obviously we've got quite a lot going on, so my machine's struggling a little bit with it there. But if we go in and have a look and see kind of what's going on in here. Oops, went a bit far. I'm just going to hit render on these. Kind of difficult to tell. The best thing to do if you're just playing around with stuff like this is just turn on ambient occlusion. And that was from the render settings button. And that just that basically it darkens the shadows where things are coming in contact. Now you can see there's a few problems here. There's a couple of things actually. One is if you look, say, carefully at this cube, you can see it's not quite sitting on the floor. The other is that these cubes have intersected, these have intersected. There's some that are intersecting here, here. So it's not sort of worked out the dynamics very well. And that's because by default it's actually set quite low. There are two things causing this. If we press Control and D, we get our project settings up, and you can see there's actually a dynamics tab here. Under Expert, there are a couple of things here. So to resolve the problem of the thing sitting just above the floor, it's this collision margin. So it's currently set to 1 centimeter. So if you say put that down to 0.2 and hit play again, let them all crash and bang into the floor. Now we go and zoom in and have a look at see what's exactly happened here. You can see that they're all sitting much more neatly on the floor, which is great, but we are also getting a lot more intersecting and a lot more problems there. And this is due to the steps per frame. So over here we can see steps per frame is currently set to 5. Now, so what that's saying is every frame it's going to do 5 calculations for the dynamics. Now we can ramp that right up, so it's we can go up incrementally, but obviously we've got to be careful because if we put it too high, it's going to slow it down so much that it's going to be really difficult to sort of set anything up. So we'll just try 25 for now and hit play. So as you can see there, that's taken quite a performance hit. But at the same time, you'll notice that the intersecting has definitely improved. We do still have a couple of issues, but it's improved. So maybe we'll actually put it to 45. I'm just going to put the collision margin up maybe to 0.6 and sort of find a halfway. Let's change that to 40 for now actually. Now obviously if you haven't got quite so many cubes, there's a lot of cubes here bouncing around. So we'll let that do its thing for a moment. Because you've got to remember, for each frame that's doing 40 calculations for each cube. So right, there we go. Now let's hit render on that. And you can see they're not intersecting, they're all looking nicely. And this is the same thing for occasionally you get items going through like the floor and stuff like that. If you ever have that sort of problem, it's the same thing. This will help fix that. Now obviously the dynamics, there is so much you can play with that, but they're the sort of two main things that will solve quite a lot of your problems that you come across. Finally, you've got this, just really handy, is the cache here. So basically if you click bake, that will put all of that detail into the memory. It will cache all of the dynamics, so it's not working it out every single time. Now depending on how much you've got going on, depends on how long this is going to take. So just to save you sitting here waiting for me, I'm just going to there's a magic button that's on the side of my monitor that I can press, which makes this go a little bit quicker. Bear with me. See, so that's actually a really handy thing if you've got that button on the side of your monitor. It's quite rare though, to be honest. But basically now if we press play, you'll see that there we go, all the cubes sort of work each other out much quicker and easier. So while I finish up here, I'm just going to make that look a bit prettier, just because I have a thing about shiny objects. So color white, we'll add a little bit of luminance, just to make them shine that little bit brighter. Reflection for now. You've seen me do this a million times if you've watched any of my other tutorials. And I'm just going to add that nice shiny white texture to the cubes, like so. Let's go into video. I'm just going to turn on the floor reflection, put that up a bit, maybe add a little bit of blur to that. The lighting, let's turn on the fill light shadow, and maybe give the key light a little bit of a boost and push it slightly towards blue so it looks a little bit colder. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now if I just hit render, we can see that that looks pretty cool, because I like things like that. Right, okay, so to finish up, that is my 10 great hints for cinema. I hope it made sense. Like I say, a lot of these are quite difficult to explain, and obviously I'm trying to keep the time down a little bit, but hopefully that will help you and get you going with playing around, because that's what I love to see. I like to see when people are playing with this sort of stuff and, you know, making cool things. Obviously don't forget to check out the website, ratemyfuneral.com. If you're interested in video, the Infinity Studio, then there's all details about that. The Pro version has built-in lighting system, the standard version doesn't, it's just the floor. So the Pro version is really a complete package, really good for that sort of thing. Also, come and join in on the Facebook page, the Twitter, find all my details for that, and join in. And again, like I said before, if you've got any like tips or hints, things that you use all the time that you think are really useful, then drop them in the comments, either on the site or on the video, and if I get 10 that I think are good, then I'll chuck together another video and give you all a mention if you've got one in there. Alright, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.